Okay, so how many people responded to the survey about resuming church services you sent out?
Look, I was really thankful. We had 100 people respond. 100 people respond. So thank you to all the people that responded. That was a really, really helpful response. And as you'll see from the slide on the screen, 24 of those people were from our 8:30 service, 71 were from our 10:30 service, and 5 were from the 1 o'clock. That doesn't mean we only have 5 at 1 o'clock. A number of the 1 o'clock people go to other services as well, but that was the breakdown of that. So a really, really fantastic response.
Terrific. Okay, so what did the survey tell us about what people have been missing since church services stopped?
Okay, so as you'll see on the next chart, 61 of the 100 were missing singing, 72 were missing conversations with people, 43 missing the Lord's Supper, 78 were missing meeting with other Christians, 60 were missing catching up with friends, 32 were having some issues concentrating at home during online church, and 6 reported other things. One of the people said they were missing morning tea. A couple said they were missing the teaching. Thank you for those who said that. So that was they were the kinds of things that people were talking about.
Good. So what did the surveys tell us about when people are willing to come back to church services?
So 30 of our people said, we will come back straight away. 16 said, we'll come back when we're confident that we're not at risk in terms of our health. 22 said, we're happy to come back, but we want to make sure, church, you've got a plan. So show us your plan and we'll come back. Show us how you're going to make sure that you're minimising risk. And so please be assured the wardens have been working very hard on such a plan, and we will get that out in due course. 15 have said, look, when the government moves to step 3, and that is 100 people can gather, we'll come back at that point. So when the government is satisfied that the risk is low enough to make that happen. 1 said, you won't see me till the vaccine is developed, so that could be a while. 7 said other things. 3 didn't give us an answer. So, yeah.
So what did the survey tell us about the willingness of 10:30 a.m. people to meet at an alternate site?
Yes, so one of the things that we're kind of thinking about is because of the 4 metre square rule, it's going to be impossible for us to accommodate everyone who comes to 10:30 at the one time. So one of the things we're thinking about is, do we meet at an alternate site at the same time? The preacher would be live one week, video the next week, so you'd kind of alternate that between the sites. And so with that in mind, 33 of our 10:30 people said yes, we're willing to go and meet on an alternate site. 27 of the people said maybe. Only 11 said no. Now, so for us, that straight away, especially when we look at the time issue, which we'll look at in a moment, says that dealing with the 10:30 issue, probably the easiest way to deal with it is actually by having an alternate site. The problem is we're struggling to find an alternate site. So we've looked at all the different council centres, no go. One of the schools we've approached was no go. We're looking at another school, maybe a scout hall or something, but the only way that option can work, so people are willing to embrace it, but the only way that option can work is if we find something. So it's a sort of watch this space as to what happens there.
So what did the survey tell us about when people are willing to come to church services?
So as you'll see on the graph on the screen, people really like Sunday morning, but they don't like too early on a Sunday morning. Okay, so one of the options I was trying to think about dealing with the 10:30 was maybe we have a 7:30, 9:30, 11:30 kind of option, but from memory, only 5 people said they were willing to come at 7:30. So that option's not going to work. People really, really like meeting at the times they normally meet. Okay, that's why the alternate site option is a good option if we can make that work, because people like meeting at those sort of normal times. Now, what if we can't find a site? What can we do? Well, as we look at the graph on the screen, maybe something on a Sunday afternoon might work. But also, what was interesting was how people responded about a Monday morning service. So if we look at the next slide there, and what we saw was that there was around about 15 people who said that they would be willing to come to church on a Monday morning, and 18 who said maybe. So that could actually be a nice sort of size. And so in some respects, the Monday might be preferable to a Sunday afternoon. One of the reasons for that, the staff team has been quite insistent that they don't want me or whoever the preacher is to do more than 3 services in a day. And so the Monday option potentially means we could do 3 things on a Sunday, with the 4th being on the Monday, and still have everyone, the preacher live. So if we can't find an alternate site, then we're probably looking at a Monday, and if not a Monday, then probably a Sunday afternoon. So they're the options. Yep.
So what is the plan moving forward for resuming church services, and will online church continue?
So to the second part of that question, so the plan is for online church to continue. So we've just ordered a brand new camera that will be able to zoom really well from the back to the front. So we're investing to keep that going. We think that online church is beneficial in a number of ways. It certainly makes our front door much wider for potential visitors, so that's a good thing. And there are also a number of people who really just can't get here. So it's not a case of they don't want to come here, they just can't get here due to sickness or whatever. And so the online option provides help for those sorts of people. And that's who it's intended for. It's not just to sort of make life comfortable for people to think, oh, well, I'd rather be in my dressing gown today, I'll just watch online. No, God wants you to gather, okay? God wants us to gather. If you can't gather, then we want to make sure that online church is available to help you in that sort of circumstance. So online church will continue. Now, at the moment, we've got some people here with us today, which is great, but the aim is on the 28th of June, so the 28th of June, to run an 8:30 and a 10:30 service at which the Archbishop Glenn Davies will be our preacher. And so who will come to that? Well, really it's the survey that's going to determine who will come to that. So what we're going to do, those services will be invite only, so they won't be open services per se. And who we will invite is really guided by what people have said in the survey. So obviously, first and foremost, the people that we have here with us today who don't necessarily have access to internet, they're straight in. So they're already with us, they'll be part of that. The people who said to us in the survey that they're willing to come back straight away, we'll quite happily invite you to come back straight away. And those of you who said, who've got kids, who said, I want to come back straight away, the plan is we'll have kids' activities at 10:30 that day as well. Now, the next sort of group would really be those people who said, we want to see your plan, okay? Show us your plan. If you've got a safe plan, we're happy to come along. So we'll show you the plan, and if you want to come, it's up to you. Those who are then sort of said, look, I'm a bit worried about my health. If we've still got room, we'll say, are you worried about your health? Would you like to come? If you were someone who said we want to wait until 100 is the sort of the go from the government, well, we'll respect your wishes and wait until the 100. And then really what we'll be trying to do once the 100 sort of easing of restrictions comes in, that's the point where we'll either go to a different sort of time or an alternate site. So that's sort of the way in which we're looking at it. Yep.
So will there be music at the initial service on the 28th?
So the Archbishop has made it very clear to us, based on advice from the Chief Health Officer from our state, that when church resumes, there will be no congregational singing. Now, the reason for that, and there's if you go on YouTube to a site called The Pastor's Heart, there was an interview with Bishop Michael Stead, and in that interview there was a video which shows aerial droplets or aerosol droplets that emerge from our mouths when we sing. And what you see is this graphic sort of picture of all these droplets emerging from our mouths as we sing, particularly when we sing far. They go quite far, and they linger around in the air. And so there's a whole lot of concern that singing might actually bring about further risk of infection. Now, we're waiting for more research to be done on that in order to figure that out. It could be that at some point we'll be allowed to start singing with masks on or something like that. But at this stage, when we come back, there won't be congregational singing. The plan will be we'll probably have reflective music, so we'll have words up on the screen, you might hum away. We've got to make sure that we've got some licensing issues in place, especially with live streaming and music and those sorts of things, but that's what we're looking at initially.
And if the Archbishop's here on that 28th, we probably shouldn't be singing.
That's exactly right. He actually said to me, having the Archbishop present gives you good motivation to have a very stringent COVID-safe plan. And
That's right.
yes. And now the other thing too, just to mention with that, is that in the survey, 82 people said we're willing to come back even if there's no singing. And I think it was only 4 who said, oh, that might sway my decision about coming back. So yeah.
What will need to be happening between the services?
So as part of our COVID safe plan, we will be cleaning the church building between services. So in particular, if you really like the maroon chairs, sorry, we won't be using those initially. They'll be going away in storage, and we'll be using the blue plastic chairs because each of the chairs will need to be wiped down after the service. Doorknobs, stair rails, surfaces, all those things will need to be wiped down, the surfaces. So we'll probably need to give the bathrooms just a quick wipe down as well. So all those things will need to happen between services. Why? Because we want to make sure that we are minimising risk in the way in which we're doing things. So I'm very, very appreciative that in the survey that 21 people said that they were willing to help with that. 30 said that maybe they'll help with that, because really we're going to need as many hands on deck as possible to make that work. So anytime you have multiple meetings, you've got to clean after each meeting. That's just part of the COVID safe plan.
And what is going to happen with the 1 p.m. service?
So we still very much want to resume 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock is a little bit more complex in that that food is a main part of that. So serving food's a main part of that. So what we want to do first of all is just get 8:30 and 10:30 started, make sure that they're all working properly. And then during that time, also think through all the risk management issues around food. And so the right ways to serve food, given risks, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to get those things right before we launch into that. My hope is sometime late July, we might be able to go with that.